Deep inside the rainforests of Central Africa, entire cultures exist that most of the world has never seen. Tribes with traditions that date back thousands of years, rituals that outsiders struggle to understand, and ways of life that have survived almost untouched by the modern world. Some of these communities follow customs so unusual that travelers who witness them often leave completely shocked. But behind these traditions lies a deep history and a culture shaped by one of the most mysterious regions on Earth. Join us and let's discover some of the strangest tribes found in the Congo. Let's go!
Number 1. The Hadza, last true hunter-gatherers of Tanzania. While the rest of the world was building cities, farming crops, and domesticating animals, the Hadza of northern Tanzania were doing exactly what their ancestors did 10,000 years ago, hunting wild animals and foraging for berries, tubers, and honey in the open savanna. And they have the most extraordinary gut microbiome on the planet to show for it. The Hadza are one of the last truly hunter-gatherer societies on Earth, numbering only around 1,000 people today. They live near Lake Eyasi in the East African Rift Valley. No agriculture, no livestock, no permanent homes. Their diet shifts with the seasons, sometimes meat-heavy, sometimes plant-heavy, and they eat parts of animals, roots, and plants that would make most modern humans sick just thinking about it. Here is the fascinating part. Scientists who studied Hadza gut bacteria found something that shocked the research community. The diversity and richness of the microbial ecosystem inside a Hadza person's gut is dramatically greater than in any industrial population studied. Their intestinal microbiome contains bacterial species that are completely absent from modern Western guts, species that help break down tough plant fibers, neutralize natural toxins, and regulate immunity in ways science is still mapping. Modern humans, eating processed food and taking antibiotics, have gradually lost much of this microbial diversity. The Hadza retained it. Their immune systems are robust. Their digestive systems handle near-toxin plant matter without illness, and inflammatory diseases that plague industrialized populations are virtually unknown among them. They are a living, breathing, biological archive of what the human gut was designed to do and what we have lost by moving away from nature. 10 strange tribes of Congoni will shock you.
Number 2. The Yupik people, master builders of the Alaskan coast. The Yupik of western Alaska and Siberia have lived along the Arctic coast for thousands of years, developing one of the most sophisticated survival cultures ever recorded in any extreme environment. Like their Inuit neighbors to the north, the Yupik face brutal cold, limited plant food, and the constant challenge of the sea. But their response to these challenges produced innovations in boat building, clothing, and food preservation that defined human ingenuity in its most critical form. The Yupik's most iconic invention is the kayak, a skin-on-frame boat so perfectly engineered for coastal hunting that its fundamental design has barely changed in thousands of years. Modern plastic and fiberglass kayaks used worldwide today are direct descendants of the Yupik bidarka. The original design, built from a light driftwood or whalebone frame covered in sea mammal skin, was faster, more responsive, and better suited to rough coastal water than virtually any small boat built in Europe at the same time in history. Yupik hunters and kayaks hunted whales, seals, walruses, and sea lions, animals capable of capsizing and drowning a paddler, using harpoons attached to inflated seal bladder floats that tired the animal out and kept it from sinking after the kill. This required extraordinary precision, courage, and hydrodynamic skill. Hunters trained from childhood in controlled capsize and self-rescue techniques, developing a mastery of the kayak that was inseparable from their identity as men. Their food preservation techniques, burying meat and fish underground in permafrost to freeze and ferment, also demonstrate a deep biological understanding of how microbes and cold interact, developed entirely through observation and tradition, without any formal science.
I'm going to ask you a simple question. Are you a naturally curious person? If you're watching, I'm pretty sure the answer is yes. This space is made for people like us. To ensure you're always part of this community and receive all our latest discoveries, you just need to do one thing: subscribe to the channel. It's the best way to stay connected with us. Okay, now that you're part of our Legion of the Curious, let's move on to the next item.
Number 3. The Dogon, astronomers of Mali with knowledge science can't fully explain. In the cliffs and plains of central Mali in West Africa, the Dogon people have built a civilization over nearly 1,000 years that is remarkable in many ways, but it is their astronomical knowledge that has made them one of the most discussed and debated tribes in the world of science and anthropology, because the Dogon knew something they should not have been able to know. The Dogon have a sacred oral tradition that describes the star Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky, in extraordinary detail. They speak of a companion star to Sirius that is dense, invisible to the naked eye, and orbits Sirius in an elliptical pattern. They describe the orbital period with remarkable precision. The problem is that this companion star, Sirius B, is a white dwarf, completely invisible without a telescope. Western astronomers only confirmed its existence in 1862 using advanced telescopes. How the Dogon knew about Sirius B has generated decades of debate. Some researchers suggested contact with ancient Egyptians or other sophisticated astronomical traditions. Others proposed that early 20th century French anthropologists who studied the Dogon may have accidentally contaminated their knowledge by discussing modern astronomy. And some have suggested the Dogon's extraordinary night sky observation skills, maintained by a culture that has always placed the stars at the center of their cosmology, may have led them to detect patterns and orbital influences that centuries of careful observation could plausibly reveal. Whatever the explanation, the Dogon maintain one of the richest astronomical traditions of any pre-telescopic culture on Earth, mapping the Milky Way, tracking planetary movements, and encoding celestial cycles into their architecture, ceremonies, and social calendar with a sophistication that continues to astonish researchers today.
Number 4. The Moken, sea gypsies with superhuman underwater vision. Most people's vision blurs the moment they open their eyes underwater. It is a basic biological reality. The human eye is not designed for aquatic vision. But the Moken people, a semi-nomadic tribe living among the islands of the Andaman Sea off the coasts of Thailand and Myanmar, can see underwater with the same clarity most people see on land. The Moken, often called sea gypsies, spend almost their entire lives at sea. Like the Bajau, they live on boats or in stilted homes over the water. Their children play in the ocean from infancy, diving for shellfish, sea cucumbers, and small fish that form the core of their diet. Diving is not a specialized skill for the Moken. It is as basic as walking. A Swedish scientist named Anna Gislin noticed something remarkable while studying Moken children. When European children and Moken children both looked at underwater objects, the European kids' vision blurred dramatically, while the Moken kids saw clearly. Gislin conducted careful optical tests and discovered that Moken children had learned to control something that most humans cannot consciously control at all: the pupil constriction and lens accommodation of their own eyes. By actively constricting their pupils underwater, Moken divers reduce the blurring effect of water on vision. Their lenses also change shape to compensate for refraction. These are physiological adjustments that trained European divers cannot replicate. Interestingly, when Gislin trained European children using similar methods over several weeks, their underwater vision improved significantly, which suggests this is a trainable skill that the Moken have simply developed from birth, giving them an extraordinary edge in their ocean-based life.
Number 5. The Maasai warriors, East Africa's endurance cattle herders. Tall, lean, and draped in red fabric, the Maasai of Kenya and Tanzania are one of the most recognized tribal peoples on Earth. But their fame for their striking appearance hides a far more impressive story, one about physical endurance, dietary adaptation, and a culture of warriorhood that has shaped one of the most physically formidable peoples in African history. Maasai men, particularly in the warrior age grade called Maran, are expected to walk enormous distances daily while herding cattle across the savannah. A Maasai herder may walk 20 to 30 miles in a single day across uneven terrain under intense equatorial sun, and do it again the next day, and the day after that, for years. This is not periodic exercise. It is the baseline of their daily life from adolescence onward. What is scientifically fascinating about the Maasai is their diet. Traditionally, Maasai subsist heavily on milk, blood, and meat, a high-fat, high-protein diet that would be flagged as cardiovascular suicide by Western nutritional guidelines. Studies conducted on Maasai elders, however, found that rates of heart disease and atherosclerosis were significantly lower than in age-matched Western populations eating comparable amounts of saturated fat. Researchers hypothesize that several factors explain this paradox. The Maasai's extraordinary daily physical activity keeps their cardiovascular system in superb condition. Their gut microbiome appears adapted to process saturated fat more safely than most populations, and some genetic variants may offer protective effects.
Their traditional way of life essentially creates a biological environment in which the dangerous diet becomes for them perfectly sustainable. A reminder that nutrition cannot be separated from the full context of how a body lives and moves.
Number 6. The Woda-Bay, desert nomads of the Sahel with ancient cattle knowledge. Stretching across the semi-arid Sahel region of West and Central Africa through Niger, Chad, Nigeria, and neighboring countries, the Woda-Bay are a subgroup of the Fulani people and one of the last truly nomadic pastoral societies on Earth. They follow their cattle across hundreds of miles of harsh terrain each year, reading grass, water, and weather the way most people read a map, with precision, pattern recognition, and instinct built over generations. The Woda-Bay keep Bororo cattle, a lean, longhorn breed adapted to the harsh Sahel environment, and their entire social, economic, and spiritual life revolves around the health and movement of their herds. Their knowledge of cattle health is encyclopedic. Woda-Bay herders can identify illness in an animal before any visible symptom appears, diagnose internal parasites by behavior changes alone, and treat a variety of cattle conditions using plants from the local environment, whose pharmacological properties are only now being cataloged by Western veterinary science. The Woda-Bay are also famous across West Africa for the Gariwal Festival, an annual gathering where the roles of attraction are dramatically inverted. Men compete to be chosen by women, wearing elaborate makeup, elaborate costuming, and performing dances designed to display their physical beauty, particularly their eyes and teeth. Women judge the competition. The Gariwal is a celebration of Woda-Bay ideals of beauty, which center specifically on the lightness and expressiveness of the eye, the brightness of teeth, and the grace of movement. Survival in the Sahel requires constant reading of environmental science, cloud formations, animal behavior, wind direction, and vegetation patterns. And the Woda-Bay have developed this environmental literacy to a degree that modern meteorological tools often cannot improve upon at the hyperlocal scale where it matters most.
Number 7. The Inuit people, Arctic survivors engineered for the cold. -30 degrees Fahrenheit, howling Arctic winds, months of total darkness, no vegetables, no fruit, no plants of any kind. For most humans, that combination of conditions would be a death sentence within days. For the Inuit people of Canada, Greenland, and Alaska, it has been home for thousands of years. The Inuit, sometimes called Eskimos, though many communities prefer Inuit, live in some of the most inhospitable environments on the planet. They build shelters from ice, called igloos, that trap body heat and create surprisingly warm interior spaces even when temperatures outside are deadly. Their clothing, traditionally made from animal skins, is engineered by generations of knowledge to be lighter and warmer than anything modern textile science has produced for comparable conditions. Their diet is almost exclusively animal-based: seal, whale, fish, caribou. No plants survive in the Arctic in sufficient quantities to form the base of a diet. Any ordinary human eating that much animal fat would face serious cardiovascular risk. But Inuit bodies have evolved a completely different metabolic profile. Their genes allow them to process dietary fat at a speed and efficiency that keeps cholesterol from building up dangerously in their arteries. Beyond metabolism, Inuit people have higher levels of brown adipose tissue, brown fat, compared to most populations. Unlike regular white fat, which stores energy, brown fat actually generates heat when activated by cold. It burns calories specifically to warm the body. The Inuit body, shaped by thousands of years in the coldest place on Earth, essentially runs its own built-in heating system. They are not surviving the Arctic, they are perfectly built for it.
Number 8. The Panan, nomadic keepers of the Borneo rainforest. In the ancient rainforest of Borneo, one of the most biodiverse ecosystems on the planet, the Panan people have lived as nomadic hunter-gatherers for thousands of years. They are among the last truly nomadic peoples remaining in Southeast Asia, moving through the forest in small family groups, hunting, gathering, and building temporary shelters from forest materials as they go. The Panan's most fundamental relationship is with the sago palm, a tree that grows abundantly in the swampy forests of Borneo and forms the nutritional base of Panan life. Processing sago involves felling the palm, extracting the starchy core, and washing and grinding it into flour. It is labor-intensive, but produces a calorie-dense food that can sustain a forest-dwelling people indefinitely. The Panans know exactly which palms to harvest, at what stage of growth, and how to process the starch in a way that preserves maximum nutrition. Their knowledge of the forest is without parallel. Penan hunters can identify thousands of plant species by leaf shape, bark texture, root form, and smell. They can follow game trails that are invisible to untrained eyes. They navigate dense, canopy-covered forest without any visual landmarks, using a spatial memory that maps the forest in 3 dimensions: the height of trees, the angle of ridges, the sound of water, the behavior of birds. Researchers who have attempted to follow Penan hunters through Borneo jungle describe the experience as trying to keep up with someone who can read the forest like a book. The Penan have become global symbols of rainforest conservation, partly because they have stood physically and legally against the logging companies that have devastated much of Borneo's old-growth forest in recent decades. Their defense of the forest is not merely political, it is existential. The forest is not a resource the Penan use. It is the only world they have, and they know every inch of it better than any map ever drawn.
Number 9. The Aboriginal Australians, desert survivors with ancient stars in their eyes. The Aboriginal Australians are the oldest continuous civilization on Earth, a fact backed by genetic and archaeological evidence. Their ancestors arrived on the Australian continent at least 65,000 years ago, and their descendants have lived in one of the harshest, most arid landscapes on the planet ever since. Their survival across that vast span of time is itself one of the most extraordinary stories in human history. Australia's interior, the outback, is brutal. Temperatures swing from extreme heat by day to bitter cold at night. Water is scarce and hidden. Venomous animals are everywhere. Plants that look edible are often toxic. Navigating this environment without modern technology requires a depth of environmental knowledge that took tens of thousands of years to develop and refine. Aboriginal Australians encode this knowledge into a sophisticated cultural system called songlines, an intricate web of songs, stories, and chants that map the entire continent in oral form. Each songline follows a specific geographic route, describing landmarks, water sources, dangerous plants, and animal behavior in coded poetic language. A person who knows the correct songlines can navigate thousands of miles of featureless desert using only memory and song. Beyond their extraordinary navigation system, many Aboriginal groups demonstrate remarkable visual memory for star patterns and seasonal sky changes, using astronomical knowledge to predict food availability, migration patterns, and weather shifts. Their ability to find water in terrain where none is visible involves reading soil color, vegetation patterns, animal behavior, and topography simultaneously. This is not mystical. It is a highly refined information system developed over an unbroken cultural tradition lasting longer than any other on Earth.
Number 10. The Bajau people, ocean nomads of Southeast Asia. Picture this. You jump into the ocean without any oxygen tank, any diving suit, or any modern equipment, and you walk on the sea floor 200 feet below the surface like it's a casual afternoon stroll. For you, that sounds like a death wish. For the Bajau people of the Philippines, Indonesia, and Malaysia, that is just a regular Tuesday. The Bajau are often called sea nomads because they spend nearly their entire lives on the water. Their small wooden boats are their homes, their kitchens, and their bedrooms. Bajau children learn to swim before they learn to walk. The ocean is not a place they visit, it is the only world they have ever known. But what truly separates the Bajau from every other group on Earth is their ability to free dive. Without any breathing equipment, Bajau divers can reach depths of 200 feet and hold their breath for up to 13 minutes. While hunting fish underwater, they move with a calm, focused efficiency that looks more like a scene from a fantasy film than real life. Scientists were fascinated, so they studied the Bajau. What they found completely changed the conversation around human biology. The Bajau have a spleen that is on average 50% larger than the spleen of regular humans. Why does that matter? Because the spleen stores oxygen-rich red blood cells. When a Bajau diver goes underwater, the spleen contracts and releases that stored oxygen directly into the bloodstream, a natural built-in oxygen tank that the body carries everywhere. Thousands of years of ocean life literally rewired their DNA to create this biological advantage, making them the ocean's true masters.
Number 11. The Nenets people, reindeer herders of the Siberian Arctic. The Yamal Peninsula in northern Siberia is one of the most extreme places on Earth. Temperatures drop to minus 50 degrees Celsius in winter. The entire landscape is tundra, frozen for most of the year with no trees, no shelter, and no permanent settlements in the traditional Nenets way of life. And yet the Nenets have thrived here for thousands of years, following their vast reindeer herds across hundreds of miles of frozen ground in some of the most brutal seasonal migrations of any people on Earth. Nenets herders move up to 1,000 miles each year, north to coastal tundra in summer, south toward the forest edge in winter, guiding herds that may number in the thousands of animals. They navigate this journey using environmental memory passed down through generations, the location of river crossings, the timing of thaws, the routes that avoid the worst winter storms. No written maps, no GPS, just inherited knowledge and constant observation. Their homes, called chums, are conical tents covered in reindeer hide that can be assembled and disassembled in under an hour. Inside a chum, temperatures can be comfortable even when it is -40 outside, a testament to the insulating efficiency of the design. The chum's conical shape sheds snow and wind naturally, and the hide covering, combined with the heat of a central wood or gas stove, creates a livable microenvironment in an otherwise uninhabitable landscape. Nenet's physiology also shows cold weather adaptations, heightened peripheral circulation to keep hands and feet warm during work in extreme cold, and metabolic adjustments to a high-fat, high-calorie diet of reindeer meat, fish, and raw organs that sustains energy output in extreme cold better than any carbohydrate-based diet could.
Number 12. The Dene people, masters of thermal endurance in subarctic Canada. The Dene are an indigenous people of northern Canada, spread across the Northwest Territories, Yukon, and parts of several provinces. They have inhabited the subarctic forests and tundra for thousands of years, living through winters that drop to -40 and beyond, hunting caribou, moose, and fish across landscapes that most people would consider uninhabitable wilderness. What makes the Dene remarkable from a physiological standpoint is their extraordinary thermoregulation, the ability to maintain stable body temperature under conditions that would rapidly cause hypothermia in an unprepared person. Traditional Dene hunters would travel for days across frozen terrain, sleeping in minimal shelter, eating high-fat animal foods, and keeping up a physical output that modern endurance athletes would struggle to sustain, even with full technical gear. Their traditional clothing, crafted from caribou hide with the fur left intact and oriented to trap maximum body heat, represents one of the most thermally efficient textile systems ever developed by any culture. The inner layer of fur faces the skin, trapping a layer of warm air. The outer layer faces outward, shedding wind and moisture. The entire ensemble works like a biological tent. Beyond their clothing and diet, Dene physiology shows adaptation patterns similar to other Arctic and subarctic peoples: elevated brown fat levels, efficient fat metabolism, and a metabolic rate that can ramp up significantly in cold conditions to generate extra heat. Their traditional knowledge of the land, animals, and seasonal cycles is also a survival technology in itself, encoded into culture, stories, and daily practice across thousands of years of subarctic living.
Number 13. The Shuar, Amazon warriors and masters of jungle medicine. Deep in the Amazon rainforest of Ecuador and Peru, the Shuar people have lived for thousands of years in one of the most biodiverse and medically rich environments on the planet. Known historically as fierce warriors, and for the controversial practice of tsansa, the ritual shrinking of enemy heads, the Shuar have developed a pharmacological and medicinal knowledge of the surrounding jungle that modern medical science is only beginning to appreciate. The Shuar are expert hunters, using blowguns and darts coated with curare, a plant-derived neurotoxin that causes rapid muscle paralysis in prey without making the meat toxic for eating. The preparation of curare is an intricate, multi-step process involving the extraction, boiling, and concentration of compounds from multiple plant species. It requires precise timing, temperature, and plant part selection. The active compounds in curare were eventually isolated by scientists and became the basis for muscle relaxants used in modern surgery. But curare is only one item in the Shuar's vast pharmacological toolkit. Their healers, called uwishin, know hundreds of medicinal plants across the forest, treatments for infections, parasites, inflammation, fever, snake venom, and more. Modern pharmaceutical companies have sent researchers into Shuar territory specifically to document and analyze these plant compounds. Several drug leads identified through Shuar knowledge have entered pharmaceutical development pipelines. The Shuar also use the psychoactive brew ayahuasca in healing ceremonies, a combination of plants that produces powerful visionary states used to diagnose illness, address psychological trauma, and commune with the spiritual world as understood within their cosmology. Western psychiatry is now conducting clinical trials on similar compounds for treatment-resistant depression, PTSD, and addiction, following a trail the Shuar blazed thousands of years ago.
Still curious? Then don't stop now. The next mystery is already waiting for you. Just click the video on screen. I saved it just for you. See you there, curious one.